we have our guys in the draft, and these are players that we are not leaving our drafts without. Kind of planting our flags on these guys, be it we like the player, we like the value, we think they're going to have some good opportunity this year and beyond. So, Nate, we're going to start it off with you. Who is your first player that you're not leaving your draft without?
All right. It seems to be a trend for me. I always love the underappreciated wide receiver at the end of the first round. Last year was Roma Dunze. The year before that, it was Jackson Smith-Njigba. This year, it's Emeka Egbuka. And I'm trying to pick him up everywhere I can. Because, Mike, let's be honest, I have a lot of first-round picks in the back half of the first round. And
Humble brag.
I'm always trying to build up some more wide receiver depth. This is the draft where, hey, you can pick up a running back maybe in the back end of the first round. But if you're picking at the 110, which is where his Dynasty Rewind ADP is, usually at that point, RJ Harvey, Kaleb Johnson already off the board because everyone wants the young running backs. And you're looking at Emeka Egbuka at the 110, and it is a smash pick at that point. I think, this guy is one of the better wide receivers in this draft class, which I don't think it's a very deep wide receiver class, so that makes him even more valuable. You got McMillan, you got Hunter at the top. I think Egbuka is just as competitive as anyone else for the wide receiver 3 in this draft class. And despite being behind two wide receivers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I still think that he's going to produce pretty good stats this year, and then moving forward as a dynasty asset, be even better. He gets to learn under those two guys, number one, which is always valuable. But also, let's remember, Mike Evans, he's going to be 32 at the start of the season, and he's in the last year of his deal. I'm sure they will extend him because it's Mike Evans. He's a future Hall of Famer. He has 1,000 yards every single year, and he's great. So, they might keep him around a little bit, but he is on the back end of his career. That is for sure. 32 is the year that we start to really see wide receivers start to drop off a little bit. So at most, he's only got 2, maybe 3 seasons left. And even in that, it's going to be limited as we continue to move down the road. Chris Godwin, meanwhile, he will be 29. He's already 29. And he is a club option after the 2026 season. So he's there this year. He's there next year. And then he'll be 31. The Buccaneers will get to decide if they want to keep him around or not. Also, he's coming off an injury right now. So we don't even know for sure if he'll be ready for the start of the season. If he is, how healthy is actually Chris Godwin? We don't know. So the Buccaneers were very adamant when they drafted Egbuka. They're like, this has nothing to do with where Chris Godwin is. And I believe that. But also, they had to have that in the back of their mind where it's like, Godwin might not be 100% week 1. So let's get Egbuka. He's got that versatility to play inside, outside. He played inside a lot in college. I think he will mostly play at the next level. But I do think he's a good enough wide receiver to play outside as well. And let's remember, this is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers we're talking about. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. Baker Mayfield has thrown 69 touchdowns. Nice. Over the past 2 seasons, most of anyone in the NFL. So you have the touchdown king in Baker Mayfield right now in the modern NFL. And then he's also second in the NFL over the past 2 years in yards with 8,544, only behind Jared Goff, who has 9,204. Only quarterback the last 2 years through 9,000 yards. Very impressive, Jared Goff. But Baker Mayfield, he's got the yards, he's got the touchdowns. The Buccaneers played 71% of their plays last year in 11 personnel. So that means 3 wide receivers out there. So it's not like Egbuka is going to be riding the pine half of the game. He's still going to be out there with 70% snap share. That's similar to what Jaden Reed has had the last 2 years. And with ability to have even more, depending on Godwin's health, depending on Mike Evans' health. Mike Evans is very consistent, but he's got a couple soft tissue injuries every single year. We know that. It's the hamstring, every year that keeps him out for half a game or a game and a half or something like that. I love Egbuka, 6'1", 202 pounds. He's got great size, average 6.6 yards after the catch per reception of his college career. That's a really good number, especially for a guy that's so technically sound. He's got great speed. He really does a little bit of everything. I love what he brings to this wide receiver squad. I love what he can do to learn under these guys. I think he's a smash pick at the 110. If we were talking like the 105, maybe I'm a little hesitant, but 110, I think this is easy anywhere in the back half of the first round if you need a wide receiver.
It's a really good pick. I like it a lot. And you said these numbers right here. What did Baker Mayfield throw for? 8,544?
Yes.
With 69 touchdowns?
Yep.
I want to let you know that in those last 2 years, the Cleveland Browns, all their quarterbacks combined, have thrown for 7,199 yards and 47 touchdowns.
Mike, you bring up a good point here, actually. You're making a funny joke at the same time, but you bring up a good point. As good as players can be, like, hey, talking about the Browns, Jerry Jeudy, great breakout candidate, has some really good last year with Jameis Winston there. But it matters so much for these players, not just talent, but also the situation. We love to say talent over situation, but when it comes to fantasy football in a game that's based off a box score, you need to be on a good offense. You need to be on an offense that's going to give you the ball. Offense that's going to score, that's going to get down the field. Because if your offense is only putting 200, 250 yards per game up, you have a lot more limitations to your fantasy football production than a team that can put up 350, 400 offensive yards in a game. So, Buccaneers, they can do it. I said 71% of their plays last year in 11 personnel. That's 8th most in the league. I know Liam Cohen left, but I don't think they're going to go too far different from where they are right now.
And on that note, Deshaun Watson in that time has thrown for 2,263 yards and 12 touchdowns and has been the second leading passer on the team both years. 2 years ago, it was Joe Flacco, and last year, it was Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Joe Flacco there this year.
Yeah.
He's back.
Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco.
Elite. Super Bowl.
Yeah, let's go. Let's talk about my guy. That's Pittsburgh Steelers running back Kaleb Johnson. I just find myself getting a lot of Kaleb Johnson. I don't know why it feels like people soured on him a little bit. Just kind of the feeling that I get from it. I don't know why. I think he's going into a really good spot. Aaron Rodgers is there now. And Aaron Rodgers actually said something today that I found quite profound coming from Aaron Rodgers. He said that he's planning on mentoring Will Howard. Says he likes what he sees from him, plans on being in every meeting and there for questions. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, I like what I'm hearing. And who better to learn from than Aaron Rodgers? Look, we know Aaron Rodgers has been kind of a dick, right? Throughout his career, towards the later part of his career, the way he was towards Jordan Love. In all fairness, Brett Favre was like that towards Aaron Rodgers too.
Yeah.
Okay. You understand this guy's coming in to take your job. But at the same point in time, Aaron Rodgers is at a place in his career now where he knows that his time's winding down. He's not the future of a franchise anymore. So I like hearing that. And now if Will Howard's available in the 5th round, I'm thinking about it. You know what I mean? 4th, 5th round, throw him on the taxi squad, see what happens. I think this is going to help lend to a balanced game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not going to have to be so run heavy now. We know Aaron Rodgers, if anything, still got arm strength. He's always had that. That's not going down. Also, Kaleb Johnson is an above average receiving back. And I think Jaylen Warren being there will take some touches away as well. And Kenneth Gainwell going to get some touches here and there. But Johnson, I feel, gets the bulk of the workload, as he rightfully should. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers a little bit, because you want to know. I understand we're talking about Kaleb Johnson, but obviously this is a big factor here. What can a running back do with Aaron Rodgers there? Are they going to try to throw the ball more? George Pickens is gone. DK Metcalf is in. Pat Freiermuth. Stock up on Pat Freiermuth now, by the way.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers in 2024, he was quarterback 15. He had 267.6 fantasy points, which was 15.7 fantasy points per game. Okay. Now, people consider that a down season. In 2022, which was his last season in Green Bay, he was quarterback 13, 251.3 fantasy points, so less, 14.8 fantasy points per game. So he's still putting up respectable numbers at his age. I think he's slightly older than me. Okay. What can a running back do when you have a guy throwing for a pretty good amount of yards? 2024, in 16 games, he was running back 16, 240.9 points. That was 15.1 fantasy points per game, 209 carries, 876 yards, and 5 touchdowns, 57 receptions for 483 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is the AFC North. They run the football a lot in the AFC North. Okay. I feel like the Steelers line may be better than the Jets line. I don't really know. The Jets are just the Jets. Sorry, Jets fan out there. But you know what it is. Hey, I've been there, man. I know I'm an Eagles fan. It's been good since 2000. There were times where it was not. It was called the 90s. So, yeah, I think Kaleb Johnson has running back 2 upside in year 1. Not saying high-end running back 2. If he comes out and he's running back 16 at the 109, I'm going to be perfectly fine with that.
Be pretty happy with that.
Yeah. Nate, I considered putting this player on here but you did. And I like that you did. I'm coming around on him more post draft. Tell us who we're talking about next.
Yeah, I'm talking about Jack Bech here. And I was a pretty big fan of Jack Bech in the pre-draft process. He gets drafted in the second round to the Raiders, and his ADP went up pretty quickly. It was for a little bit there. It was kind of like early to mid second. And for me, I thought that was getting a little rich, especially because I don't think this is the greatest wide receiver class. So, um, you know, with some of the other options out there, I wasn't exactly excited to be picking up Jack Bech at like the 204. But Dynasty Rewind ADP has him at the 210, and I have seen him dropping across the board as other people get more excited. Kyle Williams has gone up in ADP over the last month or so as sleeper, late ad by them. Good job for the people who had pretty early mock draft, rookie drafts. They were able to get Kyle Williams in the third, fourth round, sometimes even.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So some people are, picking Kyle Williams before Jack Bech. I like Jack Bech more, and I think is a really good value at the 210. So when I'm in the second round, at the end of the second round, because I had the 110 with Egbuka at the 210, I'm picking up Jack Bech. I'm getting wide receivers in this class that I'm saying isn't a great wide receiver class, but I think the values are good for the guys that are here. Jack Bech is one of the better wide receivers in this class after the catch. 5.5 yards per catch, yards after the catch per reception over his college career. One drop all season last year, 2.44 yards per route run. All of those are pretty great numbers. The one drop especially, he's got great hands. He's got really good size too, coming in at, I have it down here somewhere. I can't find it.
6'1", 214.
Thank you, Mike.
And he's pretty physical after the catch too. Yeah. One thing I really like about him.
That's what I love about him after the catch. Not necessarily the run away from you kind of guy, but he can break tackles. He can get those hard yards. And 6'1", 214 pounds. He's a former tight end, went to LSU originally to be a tight end, kind of like that tight end wide receiver. They weren't really sure, hey, Jack, you're 17. Let's see how much you grow. Well, he's still 6'1". He didn't end up being 6'4". So it became a wide receiver, but 214, he's very stocky, very strong, and put up 62 receptions, 1,034 yards, and 9 touchdowns last year at TCU. 65% contested catch rate is really good as well. Kind of that you can see him being the former tight end when he goes up at the catch point. I love this mix that he brings to the table of being a very physical wide receiver, and that not just after the catch, but also at the catch point. Has great hands, as I mentioned, one drop all last season. And a lot of people, for some reason, just want to make Jack Bech out to be a slot wide receiver. I'm assuming it's because he's white, to be quite honest. They want to just say he's like a slot wide receiver. But actually, at TCU last year, he played 72% of his snaps out wide, only 27% in the slot. So he offers versatility. He can be an outside wide receiver. He can be a slot wide receiver, too, at the next level. I think he can go both ways. With Jakobi Meyers can do a little bit of both as well. So I think, between the two of them, it's not the most incredible wide receiver room in the NFL, but Geno Smith is in town now, and he supported the wide receiver 9 and the wide receiver 32 last year. So Geno Smith can support some good wide receiver numbers. I think he can do that. There's not much competition in this wide receiver room outside of Jack Bech and Jakobi Meyers. You got Trey Tucker there, but he's more of a down the field threat that's going to be there to open up underneath routes for a guy like Jakobi Meyers or Jack Bech. It's going to be a lot of that. Now, with Pete Carroll coming into the building, we're going to be running the ball more than we did last year with the Raiders. And of course, Brock Bowers is probably the main number one wide receiver there, like we saw last year, being the tight end. So Jack Bech, probably the third target on this team, but to be a second round pick, someone you can pick up at the end of the second round of your rookie drafts, and should see 80 or so targets this year. And with what he brings after the catch and the versatility he has, I think this is a great pick in the end of the second. Like I said earlier, if it was the beginning of the second, I'd be much more hesitant. But where he's currently being drafted, I think is a great value. You can put him in, and I think you're going to get some flex spot stars out of him this year.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot. And you're right. The competition in the wide receiver room, yuck. Trey Tucker, Jakobi Meyers, Dante Thornton drafted this year. Colin Johnson, remember people liked him for a little bit.
Yeah, well, we put up numbers for like 3 weeks.
Tommy Malott, I don't know. And then just some other guys. Zachary Franklin is the only other notable name that I've really heard of before. Oh, Kyle Phillips coming back.
There you go.
Kyle Phillips, former.
Actually, I like Dante Thornton too. as like a really late ad, probably like undrafted free agent in most rookie drafts. But not that I was super impressed with the film. He was got the guy that kind of bounced around in college and never really was the guy that a lot of people expected him to be. But he's big. I think he's like 6'4", ran like a 4.3, 40-yard dash. So he's big, fast, strong. Could be the X wide receiver there for the Raiders. They don't really have anyone else that fits that mold. So I think he's got an opportunity to get some snaps. We'll see how he can actually perform. But I think he's a great kind of like UDFA pickup.
6'4.5", Nate.
Yeah, he's a big guy and he's very fast. So if he can catch the ball and get open, might be someone there.
Dylan Lobb still on the roster, by the way.
Love it.
Isn't it great? Good times out there in Las Vegas. So we want to take a minute and talk to you guys about our sponsor, Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. You can create or join a fantasy football commissioner league, invite your friends, and dominate your draft this season. Go deep. The ultimate keeper in dynasty leagues. Create a simple redraft league or even a customizable best ball league with up to 2,000 teams. You know what? Please, again, if you run one of those, I need to know what that looks like. dynastyrewind@gmail.com. In the the subject line, 2,000 team league. I want to know.
It's got to be like a lot of copies.
Yeah, I would assume. Fantrax's free NFL Fantasy Football League Manager is the most customizable, easy-to-use, and feature-rich platform in the industry. Coming from another service? Not a problem at all. Fantrax can easily import any of your current league's players and even customize if needed. Have you ever had a trade go wrong or make a mistake in dropping a player? Nate? Yes, we have. Fantrax Commissioner tools allow you to undo any move with one simple click. Fantrax is among the most trusted names in fantasy sports since 2008. It's not just the NFL either. Baseball, basketball, hockey, college basketball, college football, golf. I didn't know you could do fantasy golf, soccer, and NASCAR. If there's anything lacking in your current fantasy league manager, Fantrax likely has it. Fantasy sports does not sleep, and neither does Fantrax, with seasons running 365 days a year. Hey, sometimes even 366. There's a reason why fantasy players who try Fantrax make it the permanent home for all their fantasy leagues. It's easy to switch, and Nate and I, we run both of our C2C leagues on the platform, and that runs flawlessly. Honestly, I know people say that they've had problems with Fantrax in the past. They fixed it, and they're working on even more features coming soon. Don't be like me, by the way. Set your college lineups on Saturday mornings. They have fantasy league with player salary contracts, team caps, auction drafts, fab for waiver acquisition, in-app league chat, so no group chats, none of that stuff. I mean, there are so many other things that you could do on Fantrax. It is insane. So if you want to sign up, fantrax.com/Dynasty Rewind. All right, Nate, you ready to get back into it?
Let's do it, Mike. I like your pick here.
All right. This is Denver Broncos wide receiver Pat Bryant. Now, a lot of people are like, why Pat Bryant, Mike? Well, if there's one thing that we love at Dynasty Rewind, it is player values. Remember, Nate, you always say, we don't hate players, we hate values. We love Pat Bryant's value, but I also kind of liked what he put on film as well. He's going up to 305 right now. And the Denver Broncos, even though they did just sign J.K. Dobbins today, which is an interesting signing, but it was a pretty cheap deal. So
I think it says more about Aldrich Estime than it does RJ Harvey. RJ Harvey is not built to be a 3-down workhorse back. Now, he can handle a lot, but I think it's good to have a J.K. Dobbins there as well, who's going to be like that 1-2 down grinder.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But look, the fact of the matter is they did lose 2 wide receivers, Lil Jordan Humphrey and Josh Reynolds. They're gone. And I know that they didn't contribute a ton, okay, but they did combine last year for 43 catches, 476 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, let's just say, hypothetically, Pat Bryant comes in. He does this his first year as a 3rd-round selection, mind you. It's going to be a solid rookie year that you can build on. That would have made him wide receiver 85 in 2024 with 90.7 fantasy points. Not great. I understand that. But still, for a 3rd-round draft pick and going into 305, is a guy you could stash and a guy that I'm looking forward to in the future. And with him being a 3rd-rounder selection and Marvin Mims failing to be what we had hoped for as a 2nd-round pick, although he did have a better year in 2024, 39 catches, 503 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And Cortland Sutton aging. I hate that 30 is old now. And all the years after this year, 2025, are void years, by the way. So there's some uncertainty after that. He has an opportunity to make an impact early and possibly be a favorite target of Bo Nix next year and beyond. So pay attention. Pat Bryant, this may be the cheapest you're going to get him for some time. I love Pat Bryant.
I like Pat Bryant too. I think he's a good value in the third round. I think, limited ceiling. I don't know if the wide receiver one of Bo Nix's future is even on the roster, but
That's
I
a good
think Pat
point.
Bryant can be a pretty solid addition to that wide receiver group.
Yeah, I mean, their roster, the way it's constructed right now, I feel like there's no huge stars there, but they just play very well as a team. It's a Sean Payton team. It's coached
Yep.
very well. I mean, J.K. Dobbins just getting there, R.J. Harvey. Other than that, I'm not really super impressed with their running back room. They got Evan Ingram there now, which I thought was a really good signing for the Broncos. And then their wide receivers, their starters are Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Devon Veely, I don't know. Troy
Yep.
Franklin's still there, but A.T. Perry in the house. So Adam Troutman's still kicking around too.
Got some former Saints there.
Yeah. Interesting. So, going to be interesting to see what the Broncos do. The AFC West going to be another AFC. What are they?
Yes.
West, whatever.
AFC West.
Should be competitive again this year. Whatever.
Always is.
So, Nate, you're shocking everyone with your next pick.
Woo! I haven't talked about him in a little bit, so I figured this was a good opportunity too before we start kind of moving on from rookie content. So I wanted to give one last shout out to someone I don't want to leave my rookie drafts without, and that is Devin Neal, running back for the New Orleans Saints. DR ADP is 306. I think that's a great spot for him. Unfortunately, he did get day 3 draft capital, not even as early day 3 draft capital as I was hoping for. But Alvin Kamara, another year older. And behind him, the only competition that Devin Neal has is Kendre Miller, who has spent most of his career in the Dennis Allen doghouse. So it's not like he's had a lot of opportunities to show off his talents. And, we're in year 3 with Kendre Miller. Maybe the fresh new face is going to be the RB2 there. I personally think Devin Neal is more talented than Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller may be a bit more athletically talented, but I'm going to get to that in a second because Devin Neal is not as unathletic as some people might think. Devin Neal, one of the best running backs in college football over the past 2 years. What he lacks in maybe elite athleticism, he makes up with great vision, great patience, and kind of reminds me of some Le'Veon Bell to his game. Remember, Le'Veon Bell ran a 4.6, but because of how he set up his blocks at the line of scrimmage, how he had great patience to make sure that he was running the play right, trusting his blocks, his offensive linemen, he was able to excel and be one of the best running backs, not just in the NFL, but also in fantasy football. He also could catch the ball pretty well, which Devin Neal can do as well. Devin Neal did have a 10% target share over his college career, which is 81st percentile for running backs. So he's a little bit of a do-it-all back. And what he might have a 54th percentile speed score. So it's pretty average speed by Devin Neal. He actually has an 83rd percentile burst score, according to Player Profiler. And that's based off his great vertical and his great broad jump. So while he doesn't have that long speed to break off the 70, 80-yard runs, he's got plenty of burst to get you those 10, 15, 20-yard runs. And honestly, we've talked about this before, Mike, at the NFL level, that's what you need. The opportunity to have 60, 70, 80-yard runs does not happen very often. There's a lot of running backs that might never have any of those in their career. So if you can get the first down, you can get the 10 yards, that's what's going to keep you on the field, and he can do that. Like I said, he's also good in the passing game. And over 49 career games over 49 career games over 4 years shows great durability. He had 759 carries over that time, was the starting running back for Kansas his freshman year, all throughout his senior year as well. So 4 years of being the starting running back there, 3 straight seasons of 1,000 yards, 2 straight seasons of 16 touchdowns. This guy was productive, can do a little bit of everything, and was the offense for Kansas this past year as they dealt with injuries to Jalen Daniels, their quarterback. So I think that this guy is undervalued because he didn't blow up the combine, but you'll hear from anyone who watches film on Devin Neal that this guy is really good. And I'm not going to just turn away, even though he's a day 3 running back, You know I love this guy. And I think he has the ability to make an impact. Now, is he going to be, a top 12 running back in his career? Because he's a day 3 running back, it seems slim. But I think picking him up in the 3rd round, you're going to get a guy that, will be able to give you spot starts in the flex position. And depending on the health of Alvin Kamara, what the Saints do in the coming years, which no one really knows what they're going to do, because they got Kellen Moore down there. They got new coaching staff down there. They're in cap hell. I think they're starting to get out of it. They've been in there for a while. But this team kind of does need to reset. So I don't know what Devin Neal's long-term future is, but I think he can make an impact this year. And I think, he could win over Kellen Moore with his ability to get the hard yards, do what the team is supposed to, what the team is asking of him to do at the running back position. And for me, one of my favorite players, someone I believe in. So at the 306, you pick up a running back like him, I think you're pretty happy.
Would you like to hear a little bit about Kendre Miller?
Sure.
In his career, 2 seasons, 80 carries, 304 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's 3.8 yards per carry. 15 carries, 15 catches, 150 yards, no touchdowns. He started 2 games last year. In those 2 games, he combined for 11 carries for 18 yards, 3 receptions for 32 yards, no touchdowns across the board. So I do think Devin Neal is probably a better option right now than Kendre Miller. I think Kendre Miller could benefit from a change of scenery desperately.
Probably.
Yeah. So just wanted to throw that out there. Yes, I know he spent some time in the former coach's doghouse, but still,
For some reason, I'm not sure why, but Kendre Miller, for different reasons, kind of feels like Trey Sermon to me, which was like a player who had the talent to maybe hit somewhere, but it just didn't work out with where they landed. Because I think Trey Sermon, should have done better than he did, and I'm not sure why, but he wasn't as talentless as his career kind of looks like if you look at the stats.
Yeah. Welcome to the UFL. No, a guy who won't be going
there, man.
to the UFL. That would be awesome. My last guy that I'm talking about today at the 412. I think in the last mock we did, Nate, while I'm talking about him, could you pull that last mock that we did up? See where I got him, because I feel like it was the 502.
I picked up Devin Neal, I'm pretty sure. So I can get you all of what we did.
Look at that. All right.
Devin Neal, I got him at the 306, right on ADP. You picked up Gunnar Helm at the 5. I'm out of focus. Okay, I'm back.
There we go.
The 502, you got Gunnar Helm.
All right. So Nate told you I am talking about Gunnar Helm. His ADP, though, is the 412 currently. And what he's going to have, maybe not right away, but it's opportunity. Our man Chig, we've all loved him, just hasn't panned out so much. He's a free agent after this season. And while playing the same amount of games in 23 and 24, all 17 games, he actually produced less. In 2023, 54 catches, 528 yards, and 1 touchdown. 24, 52 catches, 479 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And yes, I know you're screaming at your phone or your radio or whatever, saying, Mike, the quarterback play. Yes, I understand that. Tennessee upgraded from Will Levis to Cam Ward. But I think as Tennessee retools, Chig's going to have a good year, and then they're going to move on from him. Okay. Now, Josh Wiley is signed through 2026. He's been a non-factor in the receiving game between 23 and 24, 37 catches, 342 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So just really not a factor in the receiving game for the Tennessee Titans. And I don't think he's going to be. I think moving forward after this year, look, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to be patient. That's why we like to put tight ends on the taxi squad, Nate. Let's talk about that.
Yep.
Wait a year, and I think this is going to pay off. He's an above-average athlete with sure hands. He's nasty after the catch, too. This is a great stash with high-value upside, much like Jake Ferguson was at one point in time. Ooh. If you remember when Jake Ferguson was drafted, there was a guy there ahead of him. I cannot remember his name right now.
Dalton Schultz.
Thank you. Dalton Schultz was there. And if you remember Dalton Schultz, there was somebody else there ahead of Dalton Schultz. He got hurt.
Oh man, I had it in my head because I was trying to get there before you even got there, and I can't remember. I'm gonna find it though. So you keep talking. I'm gonna bring it up.
But the fact is, there is a value to be had right now, and Gunnar Helm has that value. We're talking, if you don't have a pick in this range, it's easy to get there when you're in the draft, because a lot of people at this point in the draft, they check out. we've seen it, Nate, time and time and again. So to get the 412, to get even the 407, if you could hop up there and grab him, whatever you need to do, it's cheap. Isn't it Blake Jarwin?
I was about to say, yeah, it's Blake
There-
Jarwin, man. He always got hurt. That's how you know he was the guy that got hurt, you know?
I don't know why it hit me all of a sudden out of nowhere. So
Yep. Blake
Gunnar
Jarwin.
Helm back into the 4th round. This is going to pay off, in my opinion. This guy looks like an NFL tight end right now.
Yep.
Blake
I love
Jarwin.
it, Mike. And
All right,
before
that's all
Blake
we-
Jarwin, it was Jason Witten.
Oh, yeah, Jason Witten. It was weird seeing Jason Witten play for the Raiders, by the way.
Yeah, it's always weird. There's like last 2 years of a player's career. Like I'm so happy that Ray Lewis was a forever Raven. You know, it's great. I'm sure you feel the same way about Jason Kelsey. You know, forever Eagle.
Yeah.
Now Ed Reed did go to the Texans, and
was
I believe it was the Jets his last year, and it just didn't feel right.
Brian Dawkins in a Broncos jersey.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be that way.
And for anyone
Joe
screaming,
Montana in a Chiefs jersey, right?
yeah. Although he did take them to an AFC
He
championship.
played pretty well there. So
When I just wanted to circle back to something that you had said previously about Mike Evans possibly being a free agent. Oh, there's no way they'll get rid of a guy like Mike Evans. DeAndre Hopkins moved on. You know, Jerry Rice played for another team. Julio Jones played for a few different teams. Andre Johnson was the weird one, seeing him as a Colt. Remember that? So I know you say, look, at the end of the day, it's a game, but it's still a business. So these things can happen. If you want to contribute to our ADP, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. You can try it out for a week for free. It is on me. And for all, our basic landing page there's got some articles, got rankings up there for you. DynastyRewind.com. It is live. Go check it out. But until next time, everybody, for Nate, I'm Mike. Thank you for watching.